Today's the day for a listener question. I've been watching your videos on YouTube, and they're very helpful. I appreciate it. I'm new to USPSA, and I'm using a Walther PDP steel match frame, having issues with support hand placement, and keeping it on the gun firm enough to be able to have quick and accurate follow-up shots. Going to order the Lock palm swell grips in hopes to help with that. Would you be able to talk about hand placement and how to get a firmer grip on the PDP platform a little more in your YouTube videos? So I'll talk about this in regards to kind of all pistols, because I don't think this is not just a problem for one gun. So to further explain the question, if it didn't make sense, what he's talking about is, let's say 99% of people don't have issues with their firing hand holding onto the gun firmly enough. So when it shoots, it's not like when people shoot with their firing hand, it's sliding all over the gun. Most people don't have a problem holding onto the gun firmly enough so the gun stays put in the hand. The problem is normally some amount of support hand. So gripping onto the gun with the support hand loosely, when the gun recoils, it separates. Maybe the finger of the top of your pointer finger of your firing hand doesn't stay connected with the underside of the trigger guard. So when the gun recoils, you see a little bit of a space there where the hands are separating. That could be a problem. Or while you shoot, find the right angle for the camera. As you shoot more and more, or a longer sequence, more shots, you notice your support hand slipping down, and the next thing you know, you're gripping the gun way lower. So, a few different ways to address that. Yeah, fitting the gun to your hand is going to be the play. The other part might be traction. The factory Walther grips, I know pretty well, are a little bit slippery. The same thing with the CZ Shadow 2 grips. The Shadow 2 grips look good. They're just not actually made for shooting, unfortunately. So they're really, really smooth, and they have what looks like checkering, but it doesn't really grab your hand at all. It doesn't feel aggressive. I like something along the lines of skateboard tape, which is what the silicone carbide is. It's enough that it feels like skateboard tape. It grips my hands, but not so much that I'm getting like parts of my hands cut or bleeding or anything like that from a lot of practice. With the some of like the 2011 frames, the metal ones, they've got almost like little spikes sticking out the side of it. So when you grip the gun, it stays put to your hand, but to the point that it almost draws blood. That stuff's too aggressive. So I like something around the skateboard tape type of thickness. Otherwise, Lock grips are really, really good. There's one called, I think it's Bogies. Looks like a golf pattern. If I could talk. Golf ball pattern. Those are too sharp, I think, especially on the fingers of my support hand. I feel like that ends up just kind of being sharp and digging in. So that medium pattern, I can't remember the name of it. There's the V. But that one's kind of like a good middle ground between being slippery but too sharp. Otherwise, if you shoot a polygun, just skateboard tape or one of the pre-cut grips works really well. Like what's on this polyframe Walther PDP. Well, this is silicone carbide, but that type of finish. So to answer his question specifically, he asked about support hand placement and keeping it firm enough to have quick follow-up shots. So, talked about this before. For people not familiar, I'll talk. I think you need to use pressures enough to keep the gun from moving around in your hand, but that's about it. For example, my firing hand, just to hold the gun in place so it doesn't slip around, that's not really all the gripping power I have with my firing hand. Triggers, or my fingers of my support hand don't turn white or anything crazy. The reason for that is I want to be able to work the trigger finger quickly and independently of the rest of my hands. And if I make a fist, it's going to be tough to work my trigger finger fast, or you end up with sympathetic movement. So while I'm pressing the trigger, maybe my thumb moves or part of my fingers move also. It's also why I hate that pinky pressure stuff. I've had to recently fix several people that were taught that. The reason for that being, so if I want to apply pressure with my pinky or my bottom two fingers to clamp down, but then have the rest of my hand relaxed, I'm a little bit slow and a little bit dumb. I'm not smart enough to do that, and what ends up happening is when they tighten up their pinky, the pinky pressure, the rest of the fingers do that also, and then without fail, they'll end up with some form of trigger freeze, which means they're pressing the trigger fast, but then they'll quite not release it far enough and then want to pull it again. So you're going to get that little pause, and normally they'll think the gun misfired or did something, rack the gun. I'll just like, if I'm watching that, pick up the gun off, or the bullet off the ground, look at the back of the primer. Hey, there's no hit on this. That was just from too much firing hand, not allowing the trigger to reset. And be surprised how many times the old pinky pressure was the cause of the issue. So for your firing hand, I'm just relaxing, just hold on to the gun firmly enough. It doesn't move, but that's it. With the support hand, you need to have enough room for it to operate to begin with. So if it's a gun with small grips or thin grips or a compact, if my firing hand looks like this on the gun, it's going to be a problem because there's really, regardless of how aggressive the grip is on this gun, it's not going to matter because my support hand, the meaty part of my palms, not actually connecting the gun to the gun. Instead, I'm just gripping onto my fingers. So that's going to be the first problem. So making sure you have the diameter of the grip big enough, either by skateboard tape, JB Weld, silicone carbide, buying different grips if you have a gun that has removable grip panels, a different back strap, whatever. But you just want to make sure you have enough room for your support hand to contact on the gun. Then once you do that, your support hand contacts, like, yep, I've got what I want. So let's assume he has that, the person asking this question. The issue is he still can't get it firm enough basically to allow quick and accurate follow-up shots without having his hand slip. So if you have those things in mind, the right pressures and the right placement, there are going to be two issues. Well, you think you have the right pressures. If your support hand's still moving, it's going to have to be more pressure with your support hand, but doing that without increasing the pressure of your firing hand. That's tough to do because normally when one hand does something, the other one wants to also. For example, if I have trigger freeze, it's like, hey, relax your pinky, no more pinky pressure. The next thing you see, both hands kind of relax and the gun starts to recoil more because it's like you want to relax one hand, they both relax. Or if I say you need more firing hand, or I'm so sorry, more support hand pressure on the gun. Then when the support hand clamps down, the firing hand will also. So they normally mirror each other. It'll be tough to separate those two out. But bottom line, if you're shooting and the support hand is not staying in contact, it's moving around, we got two ways to fix that. One, it might not be enough pressure, even though you think it is. So you'd be increasing pressure on your support hand so it doesn't move. For example, this polymer frame gun does require more pressure than one of the steel frame Walthers with a comp on it, just because this gun doesn't have anything to reduce recoil, and it's a little bit snappy, especially with hotter ammo. So this one does take a little bit more pressure to keep my hands connected to it compared to a heavier gun with a comp that doesn't recoil that much. So the pressure might have to get adjusted to the gun. The other part to look at is just increasing how grippy the grip is. So skateboard tape, silicone carbide, or hopefully by the time this video's out, maybe the lock grips are already in the mail or you have them. But hopefully you got one of the lock grips that have a little bit more of a sharper pattern, because that'll help with like more traction to stay connected to the gun. Just like if I'm shooting one of these, well, I should have grabbed one, a regular PDP without any of the carbide or grip tape or anything, just a slick gun, completely the way it comes from the factory. Shooting that gun, I have to use a little bit more pressure and connect to it differently. Just because, although it's not a ton, this kind of grip tape texture does help. And if I'm shooting the same exact model, everything, same springs, same everything, but just no traction on the grip, that gun's going to require a little bit more pressures, and it have to be a little bit more attentive to stop from having my support hand slip on the gun. So in short, the feedback for this person would be you might have to increase pressure with your support hand only, or just add some amount of gripping service to the grip or the frame, or maybe build the grip up in diameter, which you could do by different grip panels. Or you could use the factory grips on that steel frame Walther PDP and just silicone carbide those, or add something to build those up if you don't want to buy something aftermarket. So hopefully that answers the question, gives you something to think about. If you have questions, drop them below. I tried to go through all the different what ifs that could happen for this scenario, but the person asking this, if you have any follow-up questions, or anyone else, little nuances about the grips, inputs, any of that kind of stuff, drop it below. I'm going to do my best to read through the comments and answer them. If I can, I'll just answer it by a sentence or two in the comments, or make a follow-up video if I need to. So appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that garbage. And I hope you have a great day.